This episode of Access to the Arts is being made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Access to the Arts. It's beginning to look a lot like the holidays, and Eric Marsh, your regular host, is not here again, so I'm assuming he's already preparing his turkey, probably deep frying it, getting it ready for the holidays to come up. So I'm Dave Paxton. I'm here once again to kind of guide you through the arts that are happening in the Wayne County and Richmond area. And we're here in the gallery at the Civic Hall Performing Arts Center, and very pleased to be joined by Michael West, who is now the new Director of Orchestra here at Richmond Community Schools.
Yes,
Michael, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm native. I grew up in Anderson, Indiana. Went to Highland High School and did everything in band out there. Graduated from Ball State University, got married, and my wife and I moved to Las Vegas. Been there for the past 12 years.
Las Vegas.
Yes, sir. Taught high school band there for 7 and then middle school orchestra for 5.
Stayed out there just long enough to not quite get cynical and then came back home.
Kind of, yeah. We decided to move back so we could raise my daughter up around family.
Okay, outstanding. So you're back here in the area, so you kind of know the area already. But Richmond Community Schools, your impression so far as you've gotten to know your students?
It's a fantastic school district. There's a lot of really great things happening here. This facility is one of them. The Civic Hall and the RAM facility is amazing. I've never heard of that being in a high school before. And there's such a long tradition here at the school of not just orchestra, but quality fine arts. Mr. Burkhart was one of the big orchestra directors from back in the day, and his legacy still lives on, and there's this prestige of the orchestra does some fantastic things here, and we're hoping to rebuild the orchestra back up to that same quality.
Well, that was going to be my question. As you come in and take a look at what you have right now, but also beginning to look into the middle schools and getting the kids to be interested to pick up the instruments. How are you going to go about doing that?
A lot of it starts with the 5th graders. That's how we start recruiting, and just telling them all the great things and the benefits about being in a performing arts, not just orchestra, but band choir as well. We get instruments in their hands early. We show them the basics and show them how easy it can be to make music, and then how fun it is to do that with the people around them. So it really starts at that intermediate level of getting those kids super excited and getting them to stick with it. And we're already trying to develop that 5-year plan right now, how we get our incoming 6th graders next year into the high school and have them stick with it.
And sticking with it, that's the big key, because frustration can sometimes, particularly with some of the instruments that you have in the orchestra, frustration can sometimes cause a child to just drop the instrument and not continue to play. But how do you keep them involved and finding success?
It's about showing them the little baby steps that we can do along the way. It's okay that we're not playing everything right away, and that's really hard for some of these kids in today's day and age when everything is now. I look it up, there's my answer. If I want to do it, I do it right now, and they don't understand that with music, it's a skill. It takes time to develop that. So what we do is we give them these little baby steps that, hey, look, we all did this today. Let's see if we can do this next week. And then we try to achieve that little goal next week. And then all those little baby steps help them to realize that when they look back, wow, I've come a lot farther than I expected. Let's keep going and see where we go with it.
Also a big thing, introducing them to the music itself, even if they're not playing it. But what particular pieces can you think off the top of your head that kids, especially as they begin to learn, kind of identify with and make them want to pick up the instrument?
For the beginners, it's definitely some of those really easy kiddie songs, as we call them, like Twinkle Twinkle and Hot Cross Buns and Jingle Bells. And so we incorporate those into the beginner concert every winter, so that way they get the songs that they recognize and know, plus they're very achievable for those students to be successful with.
Okay, so your musical influences as you've come into playing and now being the director.
Was a couple of major ones here. Doug Fletcher was my high school band director, and of course he's known for his work at Winchester and Anderson, and now he's at Purdue. He's a fantastic guy. Got me really inspired about music, and that's why I decided to become a music teacher, was because of Doug Fletcher. And then went to Ball State, and I had Dr. Scagnoli and Dr. Christian Zimbauer. Both of them were fantastic inspirations. I still talk to Dr. Zimbauer too. He's in East Tennessee State now. So without those people in my life, I don't know that I would be as successful and productive.
And the particular styles of music that you like to play yourself and
Personally, I like the variety, honestly. There's not one that I gravitate to more than the others. The contemporary stuff is great for the younger groups because it's fun, it's a little bit more achievable for them. But as we advance from that, we start going further back in time and introducing them to some of the older pieces of music. And then once we get far enough back, we start zooming them forward to some very modern style music.
yeah. And then, of course, you mentioned Civic Hall. This is a fantastic place to introduce kids to music, to have them actually be out on stage perform. That's a wow factor for them.
Oh, absolutely. And it was great because the last school district I came from, in the middle school, we performed in the gymnasium. And the fact that these 6th, 7th, 8th graders get the chance to perform here 2-3 times a year is phenomenal. Absolutely quite a jewel to have in the town.
Well, Michael West, congratulations on your new position and good luck. It's going to be nothing but good things, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, Michael West, Director of the Richmond Community Schools Orchestras, and we will be back.
My name is Rick Wilson, and I'm an oil painter, and I paint in kind of I guess you would say a Barbizon style. A Barbizon would be a precursor to Impressionism. It was a French school, and that's a style that I've fallen in love with and use a lot of that influence in my work. And the first thing I look for is, of course, composition. And the second thing I look for are values, the dark and light scale. And so, when I find something that has a really strong composition and a really good value scale, those are the things that I gravitate to. Well, the bottom one is actually here in Richmond at the Glenn Miller Park, a little waterfall. The creek runs through it. And the barn is a Brown County scene. In fact, both of the top paintings are from the Brown County area. Once again, it's the composition and the values that drew me to these pieces. And I love painting waterfalls. I go to the Adirondack Mountains every year in June just to paint the waterfalls that are there. They're just absolutely gorgeous. A couple of years ago, I did have a really nice show. I painted all of the Indiana state parks as part of the Indiana Bicentennial celebration. So here in Wayne County, the Richmond Art Museum and Sean Dingworth sponsored that event, and so ended up doing a 70 painting exhibit of all of Indiana state parks, and it became a Indiana Bicentennial Legacy Project. And so that's a project that I was really inspired by, with all the state parks. Give me an excuse to visit all the state parks, and so yeah, I'm really proud of that project. I show in some galleries around the state. Of course, Owanda Gallery here in Richmond. Also show at Castle Gallery in Fort Wayne, and the Art Guild in Brown County in Nashville, Indiana. Then I also am represented by Gallery 2 in Indianapolis. Then I own my own gallery in Edinburgh, Indiana. It's kind of a gallery studio. I also paint there when I do indoor work. And so it's somewhat of a staging gallery, if you will. I will do paintings there in the studio and then hang them in my gallery until I'm ready to move them on to the other galleries around the state.
Season's greetings and warm wishes for a happy new year from your friends at First Bank Richmond. Wishing you the joy of family, the gift of friends, and the best of everything in 2020.
Happy holidays!
Hello, my name is Sean Dingworth, and I am the Executive Director of the Richmond Art Museum, and I would like to invite you to our 121st Annual Exhibition by Richmond and Area Artists. It is the oldest juried show in the state of Indiana. It will be up through January 4th, so I encourage you to come see what our regional artists are creating.
Welcome back to Access to the Arts, and now I'm joined by Whitney Reeves, Executive Director of Richmond Civic Theater. We're actually coming to you from Civic Hall, and I mentioned that because everybody around this area, I grew up in this area, and you can sometimes take for granted the fantastic venues you have for the arts, Civic Hall being one, but also Murray Theater, Richmond Civic Theater. It is a traditional old-style theater that has survived. It's been renovated, and it's still there, and that is wonderful.
Yes, and we do get confused for Civic Hall quite a bit. I know there's been some issues when we have school day shows where school buses will show up here and they mean to show up at Murray Theater, and but it's a wonderful old building, and we're so grateful that we have it, and it's still in great shape for being 100 years old, but it's beautiful.
And that's what I mentioned. You go up around here, you almost take it for granted to have such a great, venerable old building, but the acoustics in it, phenomenal. The shows obviously are great, but it's really an experience to see a show there, but also an experience to be in a show there.
Absolutely.
And that is something that is available to anybody, and you in fact have some shows coming up that you're going to have auditions for.
We do. So our next auditions will be for Charlotte's Web, which is one of our stage one shows. So that director is kind enough that she's lowered the age to be all the way down to kindergarten. So if your kindergartners ever wanted to be on stage, now's the time. And then of course, like all stage one shows, the age cap is senior year of high school. So as long as you're in your senior year or down to kindergarten, you should come and audition for Charlotte's Web. It's a non-musical version, so I know when I was a kid, I was not particularly keen on singing or dancing in front of people, so this one you don't have to worry about that. So it's going to be a great show.
All right, and you also, it being very near the holidays now, you've got Christmas Carol coming up.
Our Christmas show, yes, and it's Christmas Carol the musical. So it is the classic tale of, Scrooge. Everybody loves that story, with really contemporary music, and it's so much fun, and it's heartwarming, and I just can't wait. I can't wait to see the whole thing all the way through.
So is it a traditional telling of it? In other words, in the time period that it was written, but it has modern music?
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting.
And that will run December 13th through the 15th, and then the following weekend, the 20th through the 22nd. So you actually can get really close to Christmas on this one. A lot of our Christmas shows usually happen in the first couple of weeks of December, so you got a couple weeks and then it's Christmas. But this one is the 22nd is our last show. So.
And as you get close to the holidays, you're going to want to get the tickets early.
Yes.
They're going to sell out.
Yes, this is a show that I fully expect it'll be a little difficult to get tickets. So, and those are actually on sale now, and you're welcome to get those at www.gorct.org, or you can always call Bonnie, and that number is 765-962-8011.
And then after that's done, I hear there's a New Year's Eve party.
It's going to be fun. So we did our first New Year's Eve party last year. It's a cabaret style event, so there will be singers and performers. That'll start at 9 p.m. and we'll do our hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and the party takes place on the stage. So it's so much fun to just mingle with people and hear these performers, and then we all, of course, have the ball drop together. Last year we had a little super special balloon drop. So from the top of the stage up in the fly rail, we dropped hundreds of balloons, and it was so fun. And we're doing that again this year, so you can get your tickets also online.
And that's an opportunity, again, if you've only seen shows, to maybe even get up and you can mingle and have a little bit of an experience on the stage.
Absolutely. It's a great way for those who have never performed on the stage to get a little backroom taste. And also we sort of transformed the whole theater to look in that roaring 20s Art Deco. It's beautiful. It's going to be a great event. So.
And I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but looking ahead to 2020, you have Stinky Kids, the musical in January.
Yes, that's a fun show. So it is it's our stage 1 fundraising show is what we call it. And what that means is that adults are performing a kids show. And so it's a smaller cast of 6 adults, and there's some of the favorites. We've got the Suman triplets in that one, and Shelley Wambo, and so and then a couple others, and it's just going to be a really fun show. And I encourage you to bring the kids to that one for sure.
And then Ordinary People in February, phenomenal play.
Yes, and the auditions for that are happening right now, actually. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
All right, so busy schedule for Richmond Civic Theater.
Always busy.
You're kept running. Whitney Reeves, thanks for stopping by. Once again, website and phone number?
www.gorct.org, and the phone number is 765-962-8011.
All right.
And if you check our Facebook, you'll find a lot of our most updated information.
Yeah, follow them on Facebook, because that's really where you find the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whitney Reeves, Executive Director of Richmond Civic Theater.
I have had the pleasure of taking care of probably 35,000 cataract patients. It really is meaningful to people. It changes their lives. It gives them back things that they hold dear. It seems like you can't do anything without proper banking help. I've had a very good experience working with First Bank. You have people that you know and you grow a relationship with. I just have the confidence that the banking part of it will be okay.
I'm Jim Shigaris, and I'm from Richmond, Indiana. And I've been a professional photographer here since 1988. We opened our photography studio. And shortly after we opened our photography studio, I joined Professional Photographers of America. And I began studying portrait photography and commercial photography from some of the finest photographers in the world, to the point where I began lecturing and teaching on my own. And I judged photography for them for over 20 years. When I first got into photography, I heard people talking about style and such, and I'd been a musician for many years up to that point. And I learned from being a musician that style is not something you force, it just becomes who you are. And a great musician one time, back when I was a young kid, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I met Hoyt Axton. And I saw him perform, and it was over. I got a chance to meet him, and I shook his hand, and I said, "Boy, I really enjoyed your act." And he looked at me and he said, "Son, that was no act. That was the real thing." So I knew at that point that's how good of a musician I had to be. And then when I went in the photography business, I took the same attitude with me, and I knew that I had to be so good at my craft that it just became who I am and who I was. And the style just comes after you do it. It's not anything that you can force. I studied with many great photographers, and the greatest photographer I ever studied with was an old gentleman by the name of Jay Stock. And I studied portraits with Jay, and Jay told me not to study other photographers. He took me to museums and had me study the old master artists, the master painters, and learn from them. So whatever style I developed, it came from him through studying the old masters. Starting to kind of gear back a little bit on the portrait photography, but still spending many days and hours in the field doing nature and wildlife photography in the national parks and in Florida, photographing birds, Texas and Rio Grande Valley, photographing birds. My heart is really into the nature and landscape photography, even though I've been a portrait and commercial photographer for all these years. It's been a great life. It's been a good run. Not to have a job for 30 years is about as good as it gets.
I'm Andy.
I'm Kevin.
And today we're going to look around Richmond, Indiana and see what we can find out about Kevin, see what makes him tick, and obviously he's brought some fun toys with him, so let's see what you know.
So this is the DJI Mavic Pro drone. This has, he also has a name.
Yeah, what's his name?
Steve.
Steve!
So this is Steve. Steve likes long flights on the beach and volunteering in the community. That's a fact. He does volunteer in the community a lot. So this is what's helped me become that drone guy.
Is a locally sourced amateur improvisation troupe, and one way or the other, through your connection through Hoover, and just your keeping your eye on what's happening in your community. One way or the other, you found us.
Here we
found you. So when it comes to, because you're going to be our guest on September 6th.
Yeah. I am nervous.
Well,
you know
that's kind of, you've mentioned that.
Dr. J said once a month you need to do something that really scares you. And I'm thinking this is going to take care of the whole year.
And when you say Dr. J, you mean Julius Irving?
Dr. Jetmore.
Oh, Dr. Jetmore.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. I know two Dr. J. I don't know Julie. Anyway. So what is it, what is your level of experience when it comes to performance or stage work?
Well, many beers ago, I did the competitive bodybuilding.
Right.
So, which I don't know what you know about that, but you do have to put together routines.
Right.
To music.
You can't just wing it.
You can't just go
there's
flex
rehearsal
stuff. There is rehearsal. There's poses. But in 2011, I did my first show on June 18th, 2011, in Indianapolis, and these were drug-tested, mother-approved bodybuilding shows.
Oh, okay.
So, and then 2012, I did two more, but I was basically in underwear in front of 500 to 600 people on stage.
I never thought about it like that.
I'm gonna wear clothes to improv.
Hey,
I'm gonna wear my clothes.
We try not to judge.
But I think I do still have the blue. I think it was blue velvet panne.
Oh my God.
We called them trunks because that's a lot more manlier. But yeah, so I did.
That is an interest. I've never thought about it from the performer, from the bodybuilder's point of view.
You literally put it through the music and
yeah. Well, I hadn't considered that, so that's going to serve you well. You and I didn't know each other 12 months ago.
No.
And as we got to know each other just a little bit through the improv performances and stuff, that's what we're finding. And one of the things that we had hoped to do by starting Diva and by specifically placing it downtown was to find ways to make connections, to bring new people into the space. There's nothing more rewarding for us than to have someone that none of us know come into our space.
Oh, for new friendships.
Exactly.
There's nothing better in this world than creating friendships like this. I was excited, so I seen your stuff, and then really good friends with Andrew Hoover. So I seen the flyer. I knew Andrew Hoover was part of it, and or local entertainment that's funnier than hell. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, you can cuss on
That's
here.
funnier than hell. Oh, and it's addictive to watch it.
It makes someone feel good.
And it's local. You're doing a lot for Main Street, so it's a win for everybody.
That wraps up this edition of Access to the Arts. Thanks to all the guests who joined us on this episode, and thanks to Eric Marsh, who found some reason to be away to let me come and join you for another episode of Access to the Arts. I think he's working on the holidays, and I hope you do as well. As we leave you, here are some events and happenings that are going on around the Richmond and Wayne County area.
This episode of Access to the Arts is being made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.